Trump student loan forgiveness explained. Imagine you've been stuck in student loan limbo, with forgiveness feeling like a total fantasy. You've done everything right, making payments for 20, maybe even 25 years, following all the rules of a program that came with a big promise. At the end of this long road, your remaining debt would be gone. But as you finally near the finish line, the goalposts suddenly move. The processing grinds to a halt, applications vanish, and you're left wondering if the promise was ever real. Now, what if a sudden court decision just put potentially millions of borrowers on a fast track to that long-awaited debt cancellation? A surprising new agreement has been reached with the Trump administration, and today, we're breaking down exactly what it is, who is now eligible for accelerated forgiveness, and what you need to do. Subscribe and continue. This isn't some brand new, sweeping forgiveness plan. It's more complex and, honestly, more surprising than that. It's about holding the government accountable for promises it already made. And it's happening under an administration that has been openly critical of these exact programs. So, let's get into what just happened and what it means for you. Section 1. The core problem: why this lawsuit happened. To really get why this new agreement is such a massive deal, we first have to understand the problem that sparked it. For years, millions of borrowers have been enrolled in what are called income-driven repayment (IDR) plans. You might recognize the names, like income contingent repayment (ICR) and pay-as-you-earn (PAYE). Another huge one is the Public Service Loan Forgiveness (PSLF) program for folks working in government or non-profit jobs. The promise for all of these plans was simple: if you make your payments for a set period, usually 10 years for PSLF or 20 to 25 years for IDR, the government forgives whatever is left. Sounds great, right? But for countless borrowers, the promise felt hollow. They held up their end of the bargain for decades, only to get tangled in bureaucratic red tape. Then, in early 2025, things got even worse. The Trump administration effectively paused the processing of these forgiveness applications. At the time the lawsuit was filed in March 2025, the IDR application had been taken down from government websites, and secret orders were reportedly sent to loan servicers telling them to stop all processing. For borrowers who had finally hit their 20 or 25-year mark, this was a catastrophe. They were eligible for freedom, but the government just wasn't processing it. This mess led the American Federation of Teachers, AFT, to file a lawsuit against the Department of Education, arguing the administration was unlawfully denying borrowers their rights. The lawsuit pointed to a massive backlog of applications just sitting there, creating a serious financial threat. A tax law that prevents forgiven student debt from being counted as taxable income is set to expire at the end of 2025. Borrowers who were legally owed forgiveness in 2025 were now at risk of being pushed into 2026, where they could be slammed with a massive, unexpected tax bill on the forgiven amount, a tax bomb that could cost them thousands. The lawsuit was meant to force the government's hand, follow the law, process the forgiveness, and protect borrowers from getting hit by a tax penalty because of government delays. Section 2. The solution. Breaking down the court agreement. Facing this legal showdown, the Trump administration decided to negotiate. In what many are calling a major policy turnaround, the administration reached a court-supervised agreement with the AFT. This isn't a new law from Congress, it's a legal settlement in the case AFT v. U.S. Department of Education, where the administration has formally committed to fixing the problem. While it's still awaiting final court approval, this deal is a huge step. So, what's actually in the agreement? Let's break it down. First, and most importantly, the Department of Education has agreed to cancel the student debt for all eligible borrowers in these plans. This includes income-based repayment, income contingent repayment, pay-as-you-earn, and the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. The pause is over. The government is now legally on the hook to process these applications and grant the forgiveness these borrowers have earned. Second, the deal tackles the tax bomb. The administration agreed that for any borrower whose forgiveness eligibility date is on or before December 31, 2025, their forgiven debt will not be treated as taxable income. The Department of Education will use the date the borrower became eligible as the official date of discharge, even if the paperwork isn't finalized until 2026. This is a massive win, protecting borrowers from a huge tax penalty caused by the government's own holdup. Third, the deal includes refunds. Any borrower who kept making payments after they had already qualified for forgiveness will be reimbursed for those extra payments. If you were eligible in June but kept paying through October because your application was stuck, you are supposed to get that money back. And finally, to make sure all of this actually happens, the agreement demands accountability. The Department of Education has to submit 6 monthly progress reports to the court, detailing how the application processing and loan cancellations are going. This puts the administration under judicial supervision to make sure it follows through. Section 3. The implications: who is eligible and what happens now? This is the question that really matters. What does this mean for you? Who actually benefits from all this? Let's be crystal clear about who is eligible. This agreement fast-tracks forgiveness for a very specific group: borrowers who are enrolled in an IDR plan, like ICR or PAY, or the PSLF plan, and who have already finished their required repayment term. If you've been making payments for 20 or 25 years, or for 10 years in public service, this lawsuit was fought for you. While there are over 2.5 million borrowers in these plans, this deal is designed to clear the backlog for those who have already crossed the finish line. The agreement also helps those trying to use the PSLF buyback provision, which allows borrowers to make retroactive payments to qualify for forgiveness sooner. Now, it's just as important to understand who is not eligible under this deal. This is not some new, universal forgiveness program. If you're a new borrower, if you're only a few years into your repayment, or if you're on a standard repayment plan, this court deal does not apply to you directly. This is about enforcing existing forgiveness rules, not creating new ones. So, what's next? For those who are eligible, the path should finally be clearing up. The Department of Education is now under a court order to get things moving. This means the huge backlog of applications should start to shrink. For many, relief might even be automatic. The most important thing you can do is check your account on the official studentaid.gov website. Verify your repayment plan and check your payment history to see how close you are. Because the administration has to report its progress to the court every month, we should start to see a steady stream of loan discharges. Section 4. The bigger picture, a tale of two policies. This court agreement is fascinating because it seems to completely contradict the Trump administration's other stated goals on student loans. To really get the big picture, you have to look at the administration's other actions. What you see is a dual approach, enforcing the law when forced to by the courts, while trying to restrict those same laws for the future. For example, the administration has tried to rein in the cost of these forgiveness programs. During his first term, President Trump's budget proposal sought to get rid of the public service loan forgiveness program for new borrowers altogether. We saw this philosophy again in March 2025, when President Trump signed an executive order to restore the PSLF program. That order told the Department of Education to change the rules to exclude organizations involved in what it called harmful or illegal activities. The stated goal was to stop taxpayer funds from subsidizing certain activist groups and refocus PSLF on roles like nursing. This was presented as a direct correction to what the administration called abuse of the program by the previous Biden administration, which had expanded eligibility. So how do you square an executive order trying to restrict PSLF with a court deal to accelerate it? The answer is pretty simple: separation of powers. The executive order is about changing the future rules, a policy goal the administration is chasing. The court settlement, however, is about enforcing the rules as they exist today. The AFT lawsuit argued that the administration was illegally refusing to do its job under current law. The court agreement is basically a forced admission of that duty. The administration may not like these programs, but it can't just ignore the law. This creates a strange reality for borrowers. On one hand, the administration is working to reform these forgiveness programs. On the other, it's now under a judge's watch to speed up forgiveness for people under the very programs it has criticized. Conclusion: so, let's boil this all down to the three most important things you need to know. First, a landmark court agreement is forcing the government to accelerate student loan forgiveness for borrowers who have completed their terms in IDR and PSLF plans. This is happening now and will be supervised by the court. Second, a critical part of this deal protects these borrowers from the tax bomb. If you became eligible for forgiveness in 2025, your forgiven debt will not be treated as taxable income, even if the processing slips into next year. And third, this whole situation shows just how complex and contradictory student loan policy can be. Even as the Trump administration works to limit these programs for the future, the legal system is compelling it to honor the promises made to borrowers in the past. This story is still developing. The agreement needs final court approval, and the administration's broader reform efforts will continue. The best thing you can do right now is stay informed. Visit the official government website at studentaid.gov to check your loan status and repayment plan details. And because things are changing quickly, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. We'll be tracking the monthly progress reports from the Department of Education and will bring you updates as they happen, so you know exactly where things stand.